Tragic stuff in New Orleans, tragic stuff in Las Vegas. It seems like there's a bunch of criminal minds loose all over this country. The man who is obviously responsible for what happened in New Orleans is an American. I don't give a shit what his last name sounds like. He is an American. He's a roughly 20-year military veteran. He is from, no surprise here, Texas. I'm going to be talking about him momentarily and the possible situations that led to what happened on New Year's night, actually. Not New Year's Eve, but New Year's night at 3 o'clock in the morning. The circumstances around his obvious nervous breakdown. I'm not defending the man whatsoever. I think what he did was horrific. It was a complete, just unbelievable shit. When you think about the 20 people who were there, one assumes only to celebrate the beginning of the new year, only to have a good time, only to be with their friends, and now the fact that they're dead. And the 36 others who were there for the same reason, and now they are struggling for life in a hospital. So what I want to say about this man has nothing to do with absolving him of anything that he did or in any way trying to minimize the horror and the pain and the suffering that his action caused for so many, literally hundreds of people. When somebody is killed like this, the ripple effect of the tragedy, the disaster, the sadness goes out through the entire family and beyond. So the man who did this late New Year's night is responsible for what he did, in a sense. I'll get to that momentarily. First of all, the reaction to the orange bastard who is soon going to be in charge of this country. I still shudder to think about that. But the reaction to the attack in New Orleans, and then the Tesla Cybertruck blowing up in front of the Trump Las Vegas hotel, the two events has shaken this son of a bitch. This is what happens when you have a psychopath, somebody who lives in an entirely different reality, and Trump does. You know, I'm not going to defend my non-professional evaluation of Donald Trump. I think you share it with me. The guy is so far out of his crawl space, the spring is broken. There's no way to consider anything this son of a bitch says or does to be rational or within the confines of mental health. It's just impossible. So in his excitement, his excitation, I guess would be a better word, around the events of New Year's Day, this son of a bitch is now demanding that the CIA get involved in domestic affairs. He took to his little toy social platform late on January 1st and started pointing fingers in every direction that he possibly could have about the cause of what occurred early on New Year's Day. And he stuck to his guns, blaming everything going wrong in the country on Democrats and the FBI and the Department of Justice. It's their fault, according to this orange son of a bitch. And this is a guy who is, what are we now, 18 days away from his assuming complete, unrestricted power. The Supreme Court has said so. This is what he wrote on his little toy social media platform. Quote, "Our country is a disaster, a laughing stock all over the world. This is what happens when you have, all caps, open borders with weak, ineffective, and virtually non-existent leadership. The DOJ, FBI, and the Democrat state and local prosecutors have not done their job. They are incompetent and corrupt, having spent all their waking hours unlawfully attacking their political opponent, all caps, me, rather than focusing on protecting Americans from the outside and inside violent, all caps, scum that has infiltrated all aspects of our government and our nation itself. End quote. Now, when you read that, when you listen to somebody like a crazed podcaster like me try to put the emphasis on the words that Trump wanted, you cannot help but understand this son of a bitch is out of his mind. I mean, seriously, I hope he gets help. I hope he either gets help or chokes to death on a chunk of underdone cheeseburger. I really, really do. One or the other. Now, there's not enough time for the former. Get help in 18 days? Please. Choking on a chunk of cheeseburger? Maybe. But if he assumes power on January 20th, I think most of us who have maintained a few, at least shreds of common sense or reality, understand what we're in store for. It's just almost impossible to think about. Anyway, back to the orange vomit. That wasn't enough, what he put on his toy social media platform. Then he added this. And again, listen to the madness that comes out of every phrase that he uses. You ready? Quote, Democrats should be ashamed of themselves for allowing this to happen in our country. The CIA must get involved now before it's too late. The USA is breaking down. A violent erosion of safety, national security, and democracy is taking place all across our nation. Only strength and powerful leadership will stop it. See you on January 20th. Make America great again. And then there was a pause. People who are clinically insane, who go through these eruptions, these mental holocausts that just blast through their brains, they pause. Trump paused, and then he came back at 1 a.m. and posted this. All caps, Trump, or quote, Trump was right about everything. That's it. Anyone who speaks of themselves in the third person, to me, is showing definite indications of schizophrenia. You know, split mind. Schizophrenia. I don't have any doubts. No, I'm not a clinician. No, I've had one goddamn course years ago in abnormal psychology. I probably don't know what the hell I'm talking about, but I've been around long enough. I have witnessed enough mental disorder brought about by stress, psychological issues, addiction, generational insanity. I mean, take a pick, make a choice. I'm sure you have seen examples of this yourself. Now, what he said about bringing the CIA into a position of law enforcement is particularly insane to me. We have been there. Trump has no fucking idea of what the CIA did in this country in the 60s and 70s. There was, in 1975, a congressional committee was put together. It was the Church Committee. And the full name of it was the United States Senate Select Committee to Study Government Operations with Respect to Intelligence Activities. How about that? But the guy who headed that committee was Idaho Senator Frank Church, a Democrat. And it was put together to investigate abuses, horrible abuses by the CIA, the NSA, National Security Agency, the FBI, and the Internal Revenue Service. A number of these crimes that were committed by these government law enforcement agencies were done under the, if not all of them, under the sick, twisted, fucked up leadership of J. Edgar Hoover and then Richard Nixon. So it became clear to lawmakers in this country that we had law enforcement agencies that were totally out of control. They were committing murder. They were murdering, literally murdering members of the Black Panther organization. They were infiltrating everything they could get their fucking hands on. It was horrible. Now, the committee, the church committee, was part of a series of investigations into these intelligence and law enforcement abuses in 1975. And there was a Senate committee run by Frank Church, and then there was a counterpart in the House, the Pike Committee. And there was also a presidential committee called the Rockefeller Commission. And the committee's efforts led to the establishment of the permanent, it's there now, U.S. Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. But Trump wants to turn that committee and the leadership over to fucking morons, maniacs, people who are nearly as crazy as he is. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. You know, the Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.